We are here at the Beaver Creek Chamber of Commerce to record an oral history of the 1974 Xenia tornado. My name is Mary McKinley, and I am the Public Outreach Program Coordinator for the Greene County Record Center and Archives. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm James Schmidt.
Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up in Xenia, Ohio. In fact, I was born at the Espy Hotel, which is right next to the First Reformed Church on the corner of Church and Detroit Street.
Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood in Xenia?
Yes, well, after I was born, my parents and mother and father and my grandfather and the grandmother on my mother's side, Grandma Honecker, brought me home to 126 West Church Street, which is 300 feet from the hospital and right on the edge of the urban renewal district. I attended McKinley School, which was at the time about 2 blocks down, and in 1957, when my grandfather died, we moved into 184 North King Street, which is the big house on the corner of Church and King Street. I then attended Central Junior High on West Church Street, and then the new high school at the time, and graduated in the class of 1964. I then went on to Miami University, studied accounting, and in 1968, after graduation, took the CPA exam, was admitted to the University of Cincinnati Law School, started there, and at Christmas time when I was home, I received a letter from Uncle Sam that I was going to become a member of the United States Army. So I was drafted, went into the service at what was then the processing center and is now Christopher House on the corner of Market and Dayton Avenue. I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and did my basic training there, and then my advanced infantry training. 2 weeks later was in Vietnam, and I served with the 5th Infantry Division Mechanized at the northernmost outpost in right on the DMZ in Vietnam. After 14 months, I returned home, completed my legal studies at Stetson University in St. Petersburg, Florida. Graduated, took the Florida bar, took the Ohio bar, and arrived home. And basically, I decided to set up my own practice at 63.5 East Main Street.
How old were you when the tornado occurred?
I was 28 at the time.
Can you walk me through what happened that day?
Well, as I said, I was setting up my own office. I had the front of the office had been wallpapered and carpeted and completed and had furniture and everything in it. But it was Wednesday afternoon, and I thought, well, I'm going to paint the back 2 rooms. It's a railroad style setup in the office. And I spent the day painting the 4th room back and the restroom. And about 4:30, decided it was time to go home, and I cleaned up and went down the stairs. And I looked to my left, and there it was. Just a mammoth wall of black swirling debris. And it was like time stopped. I can still remember debris floating left to right, and it seemed like it was going very slowly. And I know it was going 100 miles an hour, but it just seemed like time stood still. And I was watching it, almost mesmerized, when Charlie Miller, the barber at 57 East Main Street, had 2 of his clients, and they were in one of those basement staircases that have the grates in the sidewalk, and he was yelling at me to get down. and the debris started to fly around, and I remember a hood flew up on a car right across the street at Brewer's Grocery at 68 East Main. So I started to go there, and the door slammed shut. I guess the air pressure had stopped, or had not stopped, but decreased or changed anyway. And so I thought, well, I'll go over to Allison's dress shop, which was 55 East Main Street. And when I pulled on the door, it dawned on me that it's Wednesday afternoon. And at that time, everything in Xenia pretty much closed on Wednesday afternoon. So I ran back up to my office, went up the stairs, and this probably all took place within 2 or 3 seconds. I was looking out it's an 8x8 plate glass window, and I thought to myself, it's probably in a good place to spin the tornado, because I assumed that it was coming straight ahead. And so I ran back into the second room, which had a closet in it, and got down on the floor, and I can still remember the building. It was like it just heaved, and then it was all quiet. So I assumed it had gone by. I got up, and didn't seem to be a whole lot of damage. The front of the office, I looked to my left, and the wall was gone from the room I had just painted, and the back bathroom wall was gone. And it had a 10 by 10 wooden beam from the Penny building. It crashed in and landed, was still part of it on the floor. So I went down the front of the building, and it was like I was back in Vietnam. It just looked like a war zone out there. The cars turned upright on the courthouse lawn, debris everywhere. And the tornado obviously had turned from about the time I saw it, which would have been just west of Dodge Monument, and went basically over my parents' house. And I brought some pictures of it. I think they'll be able to show them later. This was the house when I left that morning. And then when I came home, I almost didn't recognize it. It had the tower room was gone. All of the windows were broken out. A lot of the brickwork was caved in, and the back of the attic. But all of the vegetation was gone. And these big trees, there were several of them here, snapped off. Now this picture was, I don't know, probably a week or 2 weeks later. And in fact, here's another picture. Shows a close-up. This was my bedroom at the time I was living at home. And it was just full of debris. I think I don't know, just spent days in there just digging out the roofing and everything that had blown in. So.
Do you remember anything of what you were thinking as you were kind of on your way over there?
Well, of course, I was walking at the time, and when I first saw the house, I thought, I better get home because my parents were living there. And I went in the house, I located my father. He was in the back of the house trying to get my mother, who had run to the basement. And what happened, one of the big chimneys had come down through the second floor, the first floor, and partially blocked the entrance to the basement. So we opened it up, she got out, she was unharmed, but just black as coal, just amazing. I still remember, well, I could see her eyes, it seemed like. And then we got out and kind of oriented ourselves, and I immediately then went down to see my brother because he lived on Galloway Street, and see what happened there. Well, as I got down and went over the debris, that type thing, I got to his house, and it was far enough down Galloway Street that it hadn't really been hurt too much. But he was a dentist and lived right at where Weaver Street comes out in the Armory. And so I then went over to his office thinking he was there. Well, it was Wednesday afternoon, he was gone too. But the front of his building and a lot of the glass was blown out. So anyway, I came on home, we kind of got oriented, and Mother was in the kitchen. Now, this is a big house, so even though the tornado came from the southwest, it had to go through, they have, and you don't have these anymore, a trunk room, a pantry, and then there's a summer kitchen before you get to the regular kitchen. And the kitchen wasn't really destroyed or torn up real bad. Most of the house just on the south side got the brunt of the debris, that type thing. And she was at the time cooking liver and onions. I still remember that because we never ate it very often, but my dad liked it. And Mom said, well, I guess we might as well eat. It'll probably be a long time before we have another warm meal. And I guess we ate. I don't remember anything after that. And I assume we just then kind of surveyed the scene and tried to get oriented. And of course it was getting dark, and it snowed that night, if I remember right. And I believe it rained, and it was cold, and of course everything leaked there on the roof. But we stayed at the house, more to protect it, I suppose, than anything else. And Mother and Dad stayed upstairs, I stayed downstairs. And that was pretty much our first day.
Right. You've mentioned once or twice that it being Wednesday afternoon, things weren't open, so people weren't where you expected them to be. What was your mental state like? Were you just, how were you feeling? What were you thinking about?
Oh, what was I thinking about? I don't know. I don't know if I even had any thoughts, to tell you the truth. It was just overwhelming. I mean, nobody was prepared for what happened here. And I don't think anybody knew where to start. So basically, we just started picking up debris, salvaging what we had, and the new day came. Friends and neighbors, well, not many neighbors that were working on their own properties, but Mother and Dad had friends come over, and I had some people that I knew, and we just started to rebuild and pull out what was, salvageable, and tried to keep it. A lot of things got torn up.
So you all stayed in town in the several days after?
Well, we
the
never
tornado?
left.
Okay.
Actually, the next day, it turned out my brother's office had gotten broken into that night. They stole all the, apparently you have some drugs in a dental office, that type thing, and some of his radios, equipment. And so I stayed down there the second night. Mother and Dad stayed at the house. And then my uncle, John Honecker, procured a room at the Holiday Inn over in Fairborn for Mother and Dad, and they stayed there for the next several weeks. I stayed at the house the whole time, and just kind of protected everything.
And of course, there wouldn't have been electric or running water for the next, how many days?
Well, of course, our house was on the same grid as the urban renewal area, and we didn't get electric for the longest period of time because they weren't going to rebuild there, and it was real low priority. And I can remember just weeks later, Dad writing to and trying to get electric in so we could get some more things done. But we eventually got some propane heaters, which were a big help, and used those. Water was still on, if I remember right. Electric was off, gas was off. So.
What did you do for food?
I don't even remember. I think there was plenty of food. Red Cross was coming around. We had an awful lot of food, although, of course, everything in the refrigerator and the freezer got heave-hoed. But actually, I think we cooked out in the backyard some. We had a grill and that kind of thing. So,
Okay. So, how were your local friends and family affected?
well, of course, everybody was affected by the tornado, and nobody good, as far as I can remember. But they pitched in, and people came from everywhere. There were a lot of people that helped move debris out of the yard and clean up. And my dad, a lot of people probably remember Dad. He had, still we have, several buildings in downtown Xenia and then several rentals. And it was almost like the tornado was looking for us. And it skipped around, and I think it hit every one of them. So some had minor damage, some had a lot of damage, and a couple were torn down. But that was basically what I did for the next 6, 8 months, and just put the office on hold and fought an awful lot of. We actually got a condemnation order on this house, and stopped work orders. They wanted to make that part of this big urban renewal section too, But Marcus McAllister owned the third house down, and he was determined to rebuild. And he was an older attorney here in Xenia, and was a big help in getting everything released and getting back to normal. But my dad wanted to rebuild. He, of course, lived in this house when he was growing up. And our family's been in Xenia for a long time. And he just felt that he wanted to rebuild and not only the house, but the downtown buildings. And that was basically what we did. And, I went through an awful lot of paperwork. I had all kind of insurance companies. One funny thing, there wasn't any electric in the office uptown either, but my dad was in the insurance business. And he had probably belonged to my great-grandfather, a manual adding machine, and they were sitting up there using it, and they soon found out that it only went up to $999,000. It wouldn't go over $1 million. It was that old. And these claims, when you added them together of other people, just had to be added up, and then that total added to another total. So lots changed in 50 years.
How long did it take before you were able to kind of get back to your office and focusing on your career goals?
I never really got back. I've been there now. In fact, I'm still in the same office 50 years later. But actually, I stayed and worked with Dad, and we processed and rebuilt, and I did some work, and then I decided I still had a year left on the GI Bill, so I went back to the University of Missouri and got a Master of Laws degree. And then I came back to Xenia, and I was mowing the grass here when Nick Herrera stopped by and asked me if I wanted to work for him. And I did. It was his election year with Mike DeWine, and I thought, well, I'm out of a job here when that election was over, but Mike kept me, and then I stayed on through Bill Skank's administration and doing the same thing. And then I was appointed treasurer in 1983 and did that for 27 years. So.
Just a little while.
Yeah. And now I'm back in the office. But that was kind of my career there.
What do you think have been the long-term effects of the tornado on the area?
Well, when I think of the long-term effects of what's happened at the tornado, I mean, I'm actually sad. It's a shame what happened. They had such a chance to rebuild, and basically what we got were two downtowns. We got the new wasn't anything more than a shopping mall. You had a Kmart, a grocery store, and then some little shops. And of course, they were right on Church Street, about as far from West Main or North Detroit Street as you could possibly get. And in between, a sea of blacktop. So I'm glad to see that we're getting a new plan now. But all we got out of that was a great view of a lot of back doors and dumpsters from the house there.
Are there any other details you want to share about your experience?
Well, it was a time I wouldn't want to go through again. And I certainly hope that this new developer that the city has can inspire everyone to basically take pride in the city and to rebuild, and that it carries over into the whole downtown. That we get not only a little shopping center, but a complete downtown. And see what happens. I actually in my office have a file cabinet that has a sticker on it that says Xenia lives, and although it's been ill here for a while, I hope that I can now put that sticker out again.
And that was a pretty common refrain at the time, is that correct?
Well, everybody had big expectations, and we really had great hopes for the city. Unfortunately, what happened was, instead of excellence, we ended up with a just mediocre shopping center, or strip mall center. But nobody was prepared for anything like this, and it was way over the heads of, everybody we had, and of course, all the HUD people and opportunists came in, and basically all the outsiders had one side, and it was theirs, not necessarily community benefit. So I'm hoping that the new plan is something we can be proud of.
Well, if there are no other details you want to share, I want to thank you for your time.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and I guess I almost wish, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Brigadoon, the play where you could come back every 100 years. It would be interesting if that was possible to do, and I would like to see at least the next 50 years what happens to Xenia. And hopefully it will be a united little city, and we'll have our shopping areas.
So 50 years since the tornado, you want to see in another 50 years.
That's right.
The 100th anniversary.
I don't think I'll be here, but we'll see. All righty.
Well, thank you for your time.